Hi, co-creators. It's day 4 of Vacation Bible School, and I hope you're having a really good time with all of our stories and craft activities and family activities. Today's theme is how we are like trees. And we'll learn more about that at story time, but I wanted to share our crafts today, and they are leaf and bark rubbings, or well, you can do both, pressed flowers, and you can put them in a little cardboard picture frame and display them around your home. So in your Thursday craft baggie, you should have this cardboard photo frame, a few pieces of regular printer paper, a piece of cardstock, and a few pieces of parchment paper. And you should also have an 8-pack of crayons. And actually the very first thing you're going to want to do for the leaf rubbing or bark rubbing craft is to take off all the labels from your pack of crayons. Now, if you're a person who hates to take the labels off crayons, I completely understand. That's why I put an 8-pack for this craft and then a 24-pack for general coloring purposes into your craft kit for the week. If you already have crayons that are like broken or have the labels torn off, that is perfect for this craft, and you can keep your 8-pack of crayons intact. But I just took a pair of scissors, so maybe a co-creator supporter can do this. I took a pair of scissors and like sliced the label down. You could do this with like an X-Acto knife or a utility knife if you want. Just slice down the crayon to slice the label and kind of peel off the label. Otherwise, it'll take you ages and ages to peel off a crayon label. So I have my crayons, and earlier I went out into my yard and I cut a few little sets of leaves off of some fruit trees. I was careful to trim leaves that I knew I was going to prune off that branch later, so these are not going to affect my tree. Got some lemon or lime leaves here, and this is a different variety of citrus here. You don't have to cut leaves off of any trees. You can put paper up against the bark of a tree on the trunk or a branch and just rub your crayon over it to get the pattern, which is really fun to do. I also took some leaves off of some different flowers around my yard, and I will use those as leaf rubbing forms as well. So that's the craft we're going to start with. I'm also going to use these flower leaves as part of my pressed flower art in a little bit. So the table I'm working on here is a little textured, so I want a good flat surface to work on. So what I'm going to do for the rubbings is you'll take any leaves, find some really interesting textured leaves for this activity. You might find a fig leaf is a really good one. You might look around at any house plants you have and see if any of them have any interesting leaves that you might rub over. So to do a leaf or bark rubbing, you press your paper against the thing that you're gonna take the texture of, and then you run your crayon over it sideways. So I'm gonna pull off a couple of leaves off the back of this little branch guy so it lays nice and flat, and maybe I'll get the rubbings of these as well. Sometimes it's cool to do like both the front and the back of the same kind of leaf. So I'm just going to arrange these in a fun little pattern on my background here. You could use a clipboard, you can use the surface of a regular table. Just like I said, my table that I'm working on is a little bit textured, so I want to make sure that I just get the leaf rubbings and not the texture of the table, although that would be really fun. So once your paper is over the top of your material, whether it's leaves or bark or twigs or branches, you just hold it down, and maybe my co-creator supporters can help with this part. Hold it down over the leaves or bark or twigs and rub your crayon. I don't know if you all can see, but you rub your crayon sideways like this. You do have to press down a bit hard, especially if what you're rubbing is a little three-dimensional, like my twigs that I have here. You might want to try going different directions for your rubbing. And then you could go over it in different colors. So I'm going to try purple and then blue. Oh, my paper moved a little bit, I think. And what this does is gives an impression of what's underneath the paper onto the paper. Okay, so I did that part, and now let's see, I'll do orange. I have another couple of leaves down here. Oh, they got a little messed up. Just checking those. And if you want really detailed impressions, you do have to like get the crayon over every surface. So really, it helps too to get the angled tip of the crayon in there to get some of the narrower, smaller bits. Press down in there, go over every place you think the leaf might be. And you'll get a really cool, it's a little like a shadow. I'm sure if some of my co-creator supporters are helping my co-creators with this craft, you remember doing this in elementary school. Probably some of my older co-creators have done this kind of craft in elementary school art classes. I love it. It's so fun. Okay, so I did 2 sets of leaves. I'm interested to try my flower leaves and see how they turn out. I did 2 sets of leaves, and you can see the ones at the bottom were flatter against the work surface, so they turned out a little better. But the top ones are pretty fun too. I had fun doing 2 different colors and just kind of going along the edges of some of the leaves. That worked out pretty well. Let's see, let's try some of these flower leaves and see how we do with those. And it's fun if you arrange them in a nice way. Actually, leave that one off. It's pretty 3D. And like I said, the flatter these are, the more detailed representation that you're gonna get. So Let's try. These flower leaves I think are gonna work really well. If you want a detailed representation, like I said, you have to get your crayon in all these nooks and crannies of your leaves or bark or whatever you have. And it's okay to go all the way out past the edges. Just have some fun with it, you know? You can get the spines and the ribs of the leaves and bark and branches and twigs really easily. It's a little harder to get some of the actual leaves to show up, but it's working. This is a fun way to experiment with color too, because if you layer another color over a primary color, then you'll get mixed colors. And that's fun, especially for my younger co-creators who might be surprised at this. So I'm starting with yellow all over on this version. And don't be afraid to like really press down and really, like I said, get the tip of that crayon in there. Okay, I think we're good for yellow. Let's see what happens if I add a little bit of blue in one section and a little bit of red in another section. Oh my gosh, this is working out great. I love it. My 3rd and 5th grade, and maybe even my 2nd grade co-creators probably already know what is happening as I mix yellow and blue and then yellow and red. Oh, this looks really cool, you guys. I wonder if my younger co-creators can take a guess, or if you're doing it yourself, what kinds of results are you seeing when you mix your colors? Okay, at the top I'm just gonna add a little green. That's not really going to change either of the colors necessarily, but it's fun. Sometimes all the time, I really love my job, but boy, sometimes it is just way, way, way fun. I have the best job. Okay, so this is how my leaf rubbing turned out. That's pretty fun. I would put that in a frame. One thing I should have mentioned before we got started on the actual rubbings is if you want your art to fit in this small frame, you might want to cut your paper ahead of time so that it fits in here, because it's pretty small. So if you cut your paper or fold your paper ahead of time, then you know how big of an area you can arrange your leaves if you want the whole thing to show. You can always just cut it and it will just go out past the edges, and that is fine too. Okay, so that is leaf rubbings. And I gave you a few sheets of paper, and I mean, you can repeat this craft as much as you want, as long as you have paper and natural things that are not gonna harm, don't take things that are gonna be detrimental to the environment, but if you find, especially fallen leaves, pine needles make great leaf rubbings. Anything that, lies flat is great. So the next thing that we are gonna do is learn how to press leaves and flowers. Now we won't be able to see the finished product today because you want to wait actually a couple of weeks before you pull your pressed flowers out of their press. But I'll show you how to do it, and then in a couple of weeks, set a calendar reminder and you can check your pressed leaves and or flowers. So the theme, like I said, is we are like trees. We people who trust in God's word and God's love and God's faithfulness are like trees, the Bible says, planted by streams of water. So we always have the nourishment we need. And so if you find tree-related things that you can press, great. But I think flowers and non-tree leaves will work just fine as well. So here is what you want to do. If you have a flower press, you can definitely just use your flower press and follow the instructions that come with your flower press. But if you don't have a flower press, you want to get a few heavy books. And it's especially good if they're books that you don't need for a while. So these are books that I won't use actually for another 3 years, some of them, because they have to do with the readings that we read in church, and we're on a 3-year cycle, so it works out okay. So what I'm going to do is open one book, and that's the book in which I will press the leaves and flowers, and take one of your sheets of parchment paper and open that like a book inside of the book. And then if you want all of your flowers to fit inside of the frame, you might just trace the frame with a pencil and then make sure things are lined up a little bit inside of the rectangle that you draw on your parchment paper. So if you trace the outline, and then remember that the opening for the frame is about a 1/2 inch margin on each side, then you'll get all your pressed flowers in the frame if you arrange them the way that they're going to be arranged. But you don't have to do that though. So the way that we want to press flowers, we can do this 2 ways. You can plop the flower down and kind of arrange it so that it's all spread out, like you're looking at it directly from above or below, really, so that it ends up, when it's pressed, it looks like you're looking at it from above. Or you can kind of squish the sides together. So if we have sort of the top of the flower, if you want to, you can squish the sides together and lay it down like that, kind of sideways, so that all the flowers get mushed together and it's like a side view. Hopefully that makes sense. So we'll do that with one, and then I'll show you what it looks like on my page before I close the book. And you can keep stems or not. And you can keep the heads or not. You can do some trimming to make sure that they'll stay on your page. That's okay. just working on arranging my flowers in a nice design that I like. And make sure your flower petals are spread out as nicely as you can get them. Sometimes they won't be perfect, and that's okay. And then you could put some leaves around. I think it might help to, it's been a long time since I pressed flowers, y'all. It might help to kind of smoosh the flowers down, especially if they have a stem. So like smoosh their faces into the parchment, and then press the stem down behind them so it's like a 2D pressing situation. Hopefully some of you have done this before. And then we can add some greenery. I'm just gonna pull some of these leaves apart and add those. And you can make this as intricate or as simple as you want. Okay, so here's what mine looks like. And now what you're gonna do, once you have everything arranged the way that you want, first you're gonna close your parchment paper over your flowers. Whoops. So make sure you close the parchment paper first, and then close the book down on top of all your flowers, and then press that cover. If you choose to do it in the middle of a book, that's okay, but press that down. And then you're gonna put more heavy books on top. And you can do as many books as you want. I have 3 books, and actually what I'm going to do is turn this one over so that the flowers are at the bottom of this book too. So my flowers are in the front cover of this, but I put the front cover facing down, and 3 more heavy books on top. So it's got basically the weight of 4 books on the pressed flowers. And then like I said, you want to check in 2 or 3 weeks and see if your flowers are dry and flat. They want to be pretty flat, and they will flatten out. And then if you want to make your pressed flowers into art, what I would do is cut your cardstock into the size that will fit into the picture frame, the little cardboard frame. You don't have to do this. This is optional. If you want to frame it in this or in another frame, you can mount your flowers to the piece of cardstock just with a little Elmer's glue or hot glue, and then you can slide all of that into this picture frame. If you want to do it permanently, I would use hot glue for the flowers, and I would get a shadow box from Michael's or a similar craft store. Just something with a little bit of depth so that the glass isn't pressing right on the flowers. And then you'll have a lovely piece of natural art for your home. Similarly, if you want to slide your leaf rubbing into the frame, you can just cut the paper to the appropriate size and slide it in. And that is our craft for today. I hope you enjoyed finding natural materials to make art, and I hope you enjoyed the leaf rubbing and the flower pressing. I remember flower pressing when I was a little girl, and I loved doing it, and the flowers always came out so pretty. And right now at the end of summer, or towards the end of summer, is a great time to press flowers, because a lot of the flowers are going to seed, but there are still a few good flowers on a lot of different plants. So you can find your cosmos, some clarkias. I had cornflowers. I had blanket flowers. I'm sure there are Mexican sunflowers out there that you can find. Status is still blooming, so go and cut off some blooms. It's best if they're around your own property or you have permission to cut them. But I hope you enjoyed finding the natural materials and doing this art with me, and I would love to see photos of your leaf rubbings, and then in a few weeks photos of your pressed leaves and flowers if you were able to do that. So thanks for joining me for this craft experiment, and I will see you at our activities and for the rest of the week.